right, this is the last presentation. And the last topic that we are going to do is parallel currencies. That means we have at least two currencies operating at the same time in the same monetary area. I will discuss some theoretical concepts and then give you examples of existing solutions. And when we have time, I will also speak about a couple of, let's say, theoretical ideas, proposals, and we might have a discussion. Reminder, this is the address that you will send me your activity points back to. It's the same one that you have been receiving your activity points from in your Waves Exchange wallet. Do not send more than 20 activity points because this is the maximum that you can get. If you have some spare points, you can share it with your friends, with your colleagues. You can sell them, you can keep them as souvenirs. It's up to you. It's a cryptocurrency and you are the owners of them. It's yours. When we speak about currencies in the normal world, fiat currencies, usually there is just one universal currency in a monetary area. What does it mean that the currency is universal? It means that it is designed to perform all the monetary functions, or it is supposed to perform all the monetary functions. Then we have different areas and they have different currencies, but they are basically the same type of a currency, credit-based fiat. So the only difference is the respective monetary authority or the regulator. That would be better, because the monetary authority are commercial banks, which can be and usually are international. So only the regulators are different, like there's a Bank of England taking care of the sterling system, and there's the European Central Bank supervising the Eurozone and the Euro currency. There might be a couple of issues with trying to have a universal currency that aims to perform all the monetary functions at the same time. For instance, there is an old rule in economics called Gresham's law, which speaks about the controversy between inflation and deflation, between two functions of money, which are medium of exchange and store of value. When we have a deflationary currency with a limited money supply like gold, it tends to be deflationary. Well, fiat currency is a typical example of a currency that can be highly inflationary. With the speed at which central banks like the Fed push new money into the economy, or commercial banks pushing more money into the economy, the money might lose the value, especially in these COVID times when the speed of quantitative easing is really high. We might expect inflationary currencies or inflationary tendencies should the aggregate supply not recover fast, which it might not. So if you have two currencies at the same time, which might be Bitcoin, that is supposed to be a deflationary currency, and fiat, an inflationary currency, people will spend the inflationary one, the fiat. They will try to get rid of it because tomorrow or in a year, the value of this currency probably will go down, while they will keep Bitcoin or gold, and that will even strengthen these trends of gaining value in terms of the deflationary currency and losing the value in terms of the inflationary one. Today, we are expecting a long expected event in Bitcoin. What am I talking about?
Halving?
Yes, it is. It is the Bitcoin halving. What does it mean?
It means that the block reward will be halved for the miners. So from 12.5, it will be now 6.24. I've
What consequences are supposed to take place after it happens or before it? Is it a one-term event that, let's say, changed the prices before, or will it have a long-term impact?
probably will, because there will be less and less bitcoins coming to the ecosystem. So it's deflating, as you said.
Yes, there will be fewer bitcoins emerging from now on, or in 10 hours it will take place, I guess. And the Bitcoin miners represent the supply side of the Bitcoin ecosystem because they have to pay for their expenses like electricity. So they don't really hold the mined Bitcoins. Some of them might, but they use most of them to cover for their expenses. And that means that new Bitcoins are entering the market, increasing the supply. And when the supply goes up, the price goes down. So now this push from the miners will halve, and it will have, probably it should have, long-term impact. In the previous halvings it did. Also, it is to some extent a one-time event, because people knew that the halving is going to take place. So they were speculating, they were bullish about Bitcoin, and that's why for 5 or 7 weeks, maybe, consequently, the price of Bitcoin has been rising, and it only fell 2 days ago, right before the event, because in this particular point of time, the volatility rose, which also was expected. So that's it. Even the technical analysis said that yes, this will be this will be a critical time because everyone expects this, and people are nervous. So when somebody pushes hard and is bearish at the moment, they can win some money on shorting Bitcoin. But I'm still very optimistic about the future, even the closest future, because as I said, there are the long run implications of the halving. This guy's name is Friedrich August von Hayek, and he is the only representative of the so-called Austrian School of Economics ever to win the so-called Nobel Prize for Economics. In the 1970s, right after the Bretton Woods system dissolved, he published a very famous book called Denationalisation of Money. And in this book, he argues that there should be more monetary authorities. He believed back then that it is the central bank who is the monetary authority and who is responsible for the money supply, who can determine the money supply. To some extent, he was wrong because in the 1970s already we had the credit-based fiat system. There was no attachment to gold anymore, and the commercial banks were really in charge of the money supply. But his argument was that the government gives credibility to the fiat currency, and even though commercial banks are issuing money, they still call it euro or dollar. So they are issuing the same currency. And he thought that the commercial banks should be more transparent, and they should issue currency named after their own bank. Like to be clear about the fact that what they are issuing is not the government money, but it is a private IOU. It is just an IOU behind the bank, which is the case, in fact. So he thought that the commercial banks should compete with each other in offering the best currency. And because he was a right-wing economist, a representative of the Austrian school, he believed that the best currency would be the one that is most deflationary. Because for the Austrian school, the store of value is the most crucial or most important function of money. So he believed that because of the Gresham law, um, people will get rid of all the currencies of lower qualities and they will keep the deflationary currencies. So these deflationary currencies would prove themselves in the market and they will prevail, while the poor inflationary currencies with fractional reserves would perish. So he believed that the commercial banks needed a lot of reserves in gold, for instance, or any other valuable assets to serve as a collateral for the quality currency. So according to him, more monetary authorities were a solution to the never-ending economic cycle of booms and busts and indebtedness and stuff. This guy liked his argument. His name is Dominic Frisby. He's a financial commentator, and Hayek had a really good point. But why only banks should compete? We should let anyone create a currency and supply it to the market. So not only banks, but there might be a Tesco coin, a Liverpool Football Club pound, or Frisbee dollar. Why not? Well, in fact, it is possible, legal and legit for anyone to create their currency. That's the easy thing in the world. Uh, Most of the institutions just don't do that because the tricky part here is to persuade the others to accept it. Arousing the demand for your currency, that's the tricky part, not creating it. But both the gentlemen agreed that competition is the solution because competition usually is healthy for the markets, or maybe in all the cases it is healthy in all areas of human efforts. Tinbergen's rule. Jan Tinbergen was the first economist ever to win the so-called Nobel Prize for economics. Before Paul Samuelson, he was the second, and he was a monetary economist. And he agreed that, well, competition, yes, that might be a good thing, but maybe it will not solve the problem, because the problem is that differently designed types of money are better equipped for solving different issues. So when there is the controversy between the functions, you just cannot stabilize or design one currency to perform all of the functions at the best. When some functions of money are contradictory, Tinbergen says you need to have more monetary instruments to achieve different monetary targets. He was not specific in talking about creating different currencies. He spoke about different monetary instruments. You might have more monetary instruments even using the same currency, but still, the logic hints that, well, maybe having different independent currencies is the correct solution. So the question is between, or the dilemma is between competition and scope. What scopes can we have when we try to distinguish between currencies? There can be a territorial scope, which we already have today. Like you have different currency in Poland and in Germany. That's the territorial scope or distinction. Also, you can have local currencies. That's also a territorial scope, and we already have a lesson on these. But there might also be a personal one, like different money for different people operating in the same area, in the same geographical area. I will give you examples today. There also might be a functional distinction. So you have different money for savings, you have different money for spendings, you have different money for other of these like 20 or whatever number of functions of money. There might be a temporal scope, which will be in the next slide. So you have different money in different times. Some currencies that only are valid through a certain period of time. And I already gave you some examples 2 weeks ago. Like you have this event money that only is valid during a very short certain period of time. Can there be any other type of scope that you might think of? Maybe not. You can think about it, and when you get an idea, just tell me anytime, or you can write it into our chat. Back to the temporal scope. I was thinking about Christmas money. December is the month with the highest demand for money because there is the highest demand for things that you can buy with money. You want to buy Christmas presents. Therefore, we could use a specific money only for December. So it will be an additional part of money supply that is only valid in December. We have a non-monetary concept that tries to or aims at the same issue, that tries to solve the same problem, that we need more purchasing power in December. What is it? What am I talking about? Gift cards and velocity of money. Yes. Good point. Perfect. Yes. Gift cards is like the Christmas money. Fine. The difference is that gift cards are vouchers. So once you spend the gift card, it loses its value or it disappears. That's the money destruction, basically. But it is close. And velocity of money, yes, I would say yes. In some countries, for instance, in the Czech Republic, we have a so-called 13th salary. That's not something obligatory, but it's a good habit for companies and institutions to pay a so-called 13th salary in December so that people get more money to spend it on Christmas. And the 13th salary, as Dmitry suggested, increases the velocity of money. It doesn't create more money, but it increases the velocity, which is the same thing, because I told you that money, according to the equation of trade, has some kind of quantum substance. They are at the same time a wave and a particle, because the speed at which money moves or transfers among people multiplies the money supply, which means the number of units of the currency. So if you speed it up, you create a larger purchasing power. Back to the Christmas money, if you have these notes that are only applicable in December, what happens to them in January? Oliver says no more value, or the value decreases. I think that Ilya is more right in this point. Yes, the value rather decreases. Why? Because shops might stop accepting them, or at least they will not be obliged to accept them, no matter if by law or by tradition, doesn't matter. But if you wait, then it will regain its full face value in December. So there is no reason for them to lose all their value. It will probably just decrease. And the closer we will get to the next December, the more the value will increase? Probably. eh? It would be an experiment, so we would have to see how people would behave. But it's probable that in the beginning of January, maybe even next to the end of December, the value will start to fall, and then it will be increasing throughout the whole next year. That's what can be expected, but I don't have any statistics, any data for that. People always say that there are a lot of disadvantages of having parallel currencies. I've got many arguments with my friends or fellow economists who disbelieve in the system of parallel currencies. They believe that there should be just one currency performing all the functions of money. What what are the disadvantages? What do you think are the most common arguments against multiple currencies? Expensive of exchange. So there are some transaction costs. That is a good point. That is a good point. By the way, this is also quite unpleasant. When I want to trade Bitcoins at Kraken exchange, I need to exchange from Czech crowns to euros and then send euros to Kraken, because Kraken doesn't have an account in a bank that would accept Czech crowns, and the transmission or the exchange from Czech crown to euro is way more expensive than the exchange from euro to Bitcoin itself. So it would be way easier if I operated in the Eurozone market rather than in the Czech market. So it can be a pain in the ass. I agree. Are there any other issues? Liquidity problems. It will be possible to exchange parallel money back to fiat. Probably yes. Why not? When something has a value, then people are willing to buy it. If there is no law, of course, or regulation that would say otherwise, that would make it illegal. But still, this is connected to the transaction costs. People often say that if you have only one currency, it is easier. It is easier to balance it. When you have a system of more independent currencies, it is very difficult to find a balance in such system. This is a typical argument of people who believe in the equilibrium. Well, mathematically speaking, equilibrium is not impossible, but very, very unlikely, very improbable. Sorry. There is no divine tendency of systems to equilibrate themselves. This is purely a religious belief, which is not based on mathematics. Mathematically speaking, stable equilibria are improbable. So the whole foundation of neoclassical economics that is based on comparative analysis of equilibrium points is not well founded. But if we accept this argument, no matter to what I have just said, if we accept that it is easier to balance a single currency, we need to also think about the costs of it, of the trade-off. I thought about a vehicle that would perform all the functions of different separate vehicles that we use today. And I came up with an idea of a racing tractor. And then I Googled it and I found a picture of a racing tractor. So a thing like that actually exists. The problem is that the tractor, the racing tractor, is not really a good tractor because tractors need different systems of gears. It is not even a competitive racing car if you compare it to NASCAR or Formula One, because it's just too heavy. You would need to consume so much gas to make it fast enough to compete with lighter vehicles, lighter cars. Also, it is too huge, so it would not be a good personal car because you would find difficulties trying to find a parking lot downtown. Uh, the whole thing would be extremely heavy, and maybe because of the higher degree of complexity, there would be more crises. There would be more, let's say, breaks. I mean, issues with the car, so you would have to repair it more often, which we can observe in our single currency. So it would not perform all the monetary functions. All the single currency does not perform any of the monetary functions at 100%. It is costly and it is unstable. People also often say that if you have more currencies, it is harder to understand it. I don't think so, because now we have a fiat currency that is so universal and versatile that does everything, but people fail to understand how it works. Even experts on the topic don't understand how the currency works in its full complexity. I've been studying this topic for, I don't know, 11, 12 years. This is my topic. That's what I do. That's what I am an expert for. And still, I'm not confident to say that I understand the full complexity, the big picture of how this universal currency works. So it is super complicated. It is like trying to understand a control panel of a submarine or of a nuclear power plant. It's very, very difficult. I've never met anyone, any economist or banker or professional that would understand the issue of money and its complexity. On the other hand, it's not too difficult to understand your single purpose food stamps, credit by a mobile operator, investment goal, all these single purpose vehicles, is it? It's easy. So I don't really agree with this argument. Some people say that one economy only needs one solution. That economy has a certain shape and you need to cover it with the currency of the same shape. Well, firstly, we can say that a good combination of multiple currencies also is one solution that has one shape. But even if not, even if there is one currency that is very well applicable to the economy, there are different issues with it, and there are issues with the dynamics. And I represent this with the picture of a Bohemian forest. In the 19th century in Bohemia, the Austrian-Hungarian Empire grew spruce trees in most of the forests. Spruce was considered to be a perfect tree. It was cheap, it was fast to grow, it was suitable for making furniture or paper. It gave you a lot of energy when you burned it. It was good for water retention. So it was a perfect tree. But what we, the Czechs, now have in our forest is a so-called monoculture. And the problem with monocultures, that means that you only have one type of a tree in the forest. The problem with monocultures is that they are vulnerable to changes of the environment. The whole forest, the whole ecosystems can be easily damaged by erosion, by parasites, by pests. And that is an actual problem. And it's very often in the media. People speak about it because the forests are damaged with some kind of bug that eats these trees, and there are no other trees to replace them because they were replaced by the monoculture. A variable system, however, is more adaptable to changes because along with the dominant solution, be it trees or currencies, there are other options waiting and preparing to overtake their role. What is more, even if there could be a single perfect solution, it is way more probable that it would be discovered in the market, in the competition, rather than designed by a regulator. And the last complaint is the transaction fees. And yeah, no objections to that. This is the case. It is a flaw of parallel systems. Uh, the good news is that these transactions fees are going down thanks to technology, thanks to innovations like, I don't know, Revolut cards, TransferWise. Um, in terms of cryptocurrencies, it would be decentralized exchanges. I'm not saying that they're cheaper than centralized exchanges, but maybe they are more they are more secure. So thanks to the technology, it is easier to connect the supply and the demand. And the final stage that I am thinking about is the stage at which you keep currencies that you like in your wallet and you pay with the currencies that you like or that you want to get rid of. And at the same time, the seller, the person that is receiving your money, is receiving the currency of their choice. And the transactions happens in the background in the specific designed market. Uh, this is exactly what Ripple or Stellar Lumens were created for, among others. That is what the TransferWise does. It finds the right way how to connect the chain of buyers and sellers so that everyone can pay with their currency and the counterparty receives currency of their choice. Some people still believe that the universe wants one money. I told you it's almost a religious belief. Uh, there is a famous article claiming that the universe wants one money, uh, and the money is Bitcoin. It is like the holy book of the Bitcoin maximalists. Uh, when I was in Northern Ireland, I found out that not only the people in Ulster have their own version of pound sterling, but every bank in Northern Ireland prints their own currency. So you have dozens of versions of money, which looks differently, but they represent the same thing. There's a brewery, Bushmills Distillery, on one of the notes, and they are all valid. How come? How is it even possible? You know, if you leave people freely create their own money, they just will. So there is no equilibrium that would find just one type of picture or currency. Let's move to the personal scope. I have you heard about the convertible peso? Have you ever been to Cuba?
Yes, I did.
How does it work? And what's the point? What's the purpose?
I think there are like two versions of currency. One is just for tourists, and the other is for people which live there.
Mhm. Yes, and the reason here is price discrimination. The tourists are considered and it's a fair guess, they are considered to be richer than the Cuban population. So they can afford to pay more, and they do pay more. That's also how the country makes profit on tourism. And well, it's quite fair. Why not? We used to have the same issue here in the Czech Republic, and in some places we still do. And it's not just about Czech Republic. The same thing happens in other countries too. And it's a price discrimination against tourists, which means that if you want a menu written in English or German, then the prices would be different there. Kind of embarrassing, not very common nowadays, but it used to be an issue. And it's easy to do that. It's easy to distinguish between Czech people and the foreigners because we speak a different language that not many people understand. But Cuba speaks Spanish. Half of the world speaks Spanish, so you need to find a different way how to distinguish between people. And that's the money. You just don't let them convert their currencies into the Cuban peso, which is the currency for the locals. You only can exchange money into the convertible peso, and it is illegal to sell money to the tourist, to sell the Cuban peso to the tourist. You still can get the pesos on the black market, of course, but it's risky. It is illegal, so you have no legal protection, and somebody tries to defraud you. Like it happened to my uncle. He went to the Isle of Cuba and he wanted to buy the Cuban peso in the black market, and so he did. He knew the prices, so that's what he did. But later he realized that he was scammed because he took a look at the pesos, and they were the 60 years old currency with Batista, the previous dictator in Cuba, so they were no longer valid, of course. The convertible peso is or has been in the market since 1994. It has the value of $1. Previously, until I think 2001 or 2004, the dollar was normally accepted in the Cuban shops, but now you need to convert to the convertible peso, which is better. Which is of course better for the government because you buy the pesos in advance and you create a reserve. So when you finish your vacation, you end up with some convertible pesos in your pocket. You probably keep it as a souvenir. While if you had dollars, you would just take it back home. This way, it stays in the island. Boni is or was a parallel currency in the socialist Czechoslovakia. They were tokens exchangeable for foreign currency. Boni means vouchers in German, and for some reason the Czechs started using this, or bon is voucher in German, boni is the Czech plural, and we started using this as a parallel currency. There were two markets, or two types of shops. The normal shops that looked like this, there were not many goods, there were shortages because of socialism, which sometimes is not really working well. And then there were Tuzex shops. And in the Tuzex shops, and only in the Tuzex shops, you could have bought foreign goods like milk, chocolate, denim jeans, Coca-Cola, or I don't know, Scotch. In normal shops, you could have not bought Western goods. Why? Well, because there were not enough of them. The trade with the Western countries happened in US dollars or the Western currencies, the German marks or I don't know, Swedish crowns, pound sterling. And the country didn't have much of them. There were only two channels, like how Czechoslovakia could have got the foreign currencies. One was export, but since the 1970s, the Czechoslovakian goods started losing their competitiveness because of lack of innovation in the Eastern Bloc. So the demand for them were not really huge, and there was always a shortage of dollars and foreign currencies. So there was another channel, and that was from the citizens themselves. The citizens sometimes worked in the West, like my grandpa worked as a construction worker in Denmark when I was born, and he brought some Danish crowns back to Czechoslovakia. Or people had relatives abroad, usually people who escaped the country in 1948 after the communist turnover, or in 1968 after the Russian invasion. And these relatives living in foreign countries were sending gifts to their people in Czechoslovakia. But the government didn't let you to keep these foreign currencies. They would take it away from you and exchanged it for this bonding instead. And then you could have used the bonding, and the state could have bought foreign goods with the foreign currency. What was the point of the TUSEX? Why did the government not just steal the money from the people? Why did it come up with the idea of bonding? Shall I rephrase the question? Have you been paying attention?
They were having some money for themselves from these shops, and the money, yeah.
Yes. Yeah, very well. Good point. Thank you. Thank you, Dana. Yes, you need to understand that like quarter of the population were members of the Communist Party, and they also wanted to eat the milk and chocolate and I don't know, drink the beefeater gin. So they needed shops, and of course they participated in this system. And yes, the other reason was to make the population content, to distribute somehow these goods to the people. Of course, not everyone had relatives abroad, not everyone worked as a construction worker in Denmark, but there was a black market, and there were racketeers. In Czech, they were called vexláci, and they were selling these bony to people who did not have any approach to them. It was tolerated. It was a black market that was tolerated. In the last year of socialism, a movie called Bonnie a Clit, which means Bonnie and Peace, was shot criticizing the system that everybody knew about. Of course, this is a paraphrase on Bonnie and Clyde. So this is a story of these racketeers. And the reason why the government did not just steal money from the people is that nobody would be willing to go working abroad, and most likely your relatives would not send you money if they know that it would end up in the hands of the communist government. So they needed to engage people in let's say, persuading the relatives to send the money. Dollarization, Euroization. This is a term that explains the situation when there is a parallel currency accepted unofficially in a country. Like the country of Bosnia. Bosnia has its currency, Bosnian mark, which is pegged to the euro, but retailers generally accept euro too. The same thing you can observe in Prague. Most of the shops accept euro too, even though it is not our national currency. We have the Czech crown. But most importantly, the Czech industry is connected to the German market heavily. And that's why industry in the majority uses euro. They have euro accounts in the banks, and they make their accountings in euro, and they only have Czech crowns for paying to their Czech employees. And the same happens in the city of London. Most of the institutions have dollar accounts. What is the reason? The reason is to have an easier. It is easier for business communication with the foreigners. Connection to the U.S. industry, and yes, not just industry, but mostly to the U.S. Financial market. And according to Perry Merling, who is a professor of banking or monetary economics at the Columbia University in New York, most of the dollars in the world, in fact, are issued in London, not in America. So it's not supervised by Fed at all. Every bank can create any money that it wants. They don't have to issue just the currency that is their legal tender, because it's just a private IOU, and I can owe you any currency I want as long as you accept it. So, the City of London, being the world's financial hub, together with New York, in fact, they support the world with US dollars. Let's take a look to the Middle Ages. In the Middle Ages, people used any currency that they could have found. So monies from Austria, for instance, were quite popular in the 18th century, and they spread across the whole Europe. And people just didn't care much because their value was somehow connected to the underlying metal. Trimetallism, to some extent, was used officially only in Japan. They had legal tender in three metals: copper, silver, and gold. But unofficially, it was used well everywhere, pretty much. And these monies of different metal, like silver coins and golden coins, they were convertible, but not really converted in fact. They used the weird Roman metrics. The exchange rate were not in the decimal system. So it was not like in the game of Dungeons and Dragons, where, I don't know, 10 silver coins give you one golden coin. No, it was more similar to the weird British system that Britain used until the 1960s, which is like when you count time today. You have 60 seconds in a minute, 60 minutes in an hour, 24 hours in a day, and I don't know, 30 days in a month. So it's not the decimal system. And it was not converted, as I said. Gold was only flew among rich people, and it was used for big purchases, and copper would be for poor people for petty purchases. So with gold coins, you buy a family tomb, With silver, you'd buy a horse or an armor, and with copper, you would buy turnips if people used money at all. Of course, credit systems, mutual favors were also very popular. In the 19th century, bimetallism prevailed. The only country to only have used gold was Great Britain, United Kingdom. All the other countries had golden and silver coins, and they were interchangeable. But this was unstable. This was unstable. First question is, why did they use both currencies or both metals? There was, let's say, a 20 franc coin in France, and one was golden, it was smaller, the other one was silver, but they had the same value, 20 franc. Why was it so? Why did they not use just gold?
They didn't have enough.
Exactly, they didn't have enough. Gold is very scarce. Gold is very scarce, so you needed to add silver to it. Mara writes or wrote 3 minutes. Another reason for dollarization. Your own currency is unstable or worthless, so you substitute it with another foreign currency. Very well, yes. And a great example of this would be Ecuador. This is a country in South America, of course, and they had their own currency called sucre, but it was very poor and it was losing a lot of value. So it was slowly replaced by dollars. And in the beginning of our century, dollar officially replaced sucre, which is no longer in circulation. Also, Ecuador came up with the idea of their digital currency. It's not a cryptocurrency. They advertised it as a cryptocurrency, but it is not. It is a centrally controlled digital currency controlled by the central bank. It's called dinero electrónico. Can the system of bimetallism of coins that can be either silver or gold have any flaws? There is a fixed exchange rate between silver and gold. What flaws can you foresee?
I'm sorry, could you please repeat the question?
You have a fixed exchange rate between gold and silver in terms of money, because you have you have a coin with a face value 20 franc, and it can either be made of silver or gold, and by law they have the same value. What is the flaw? What problems can there be with this?
That in other countries they don't have to have the same value, so we can sell it as a silver for more or as a gold for more than the silver coin.
Yeah, you are exactly right. There were German entrepreneurs, or we might say speculators, and they would melt down golden francs, buy silver for gold, mint silver franc coins, which was legal because there was the free coinage system. So if you came with the metal to the mint, they were obliged to mint the coins for you. So they would mint silver franc coins and exchange them for golden francs, and they would repeat it and repeat it, and they would have profit from this. So if you have an official exchange rate which might diverse from the market exchange rate, you can always make money on that. That's a problem with all. That's a typical problem of regulation. The, 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 The problem consists in the fact that the scarcity of gold is different than the scarcity of silver, even in the dynamic terms, meaning that uh, the the new gold being mined is more rarer than the silver. You mine more new silver than gold. So the market exchange rate is favorable to gold, even in the dynamic terms. It increases with time. So it's like with the Bitcoin halving again. So like we can say that right now Bitcoin is like the silver. There's quite a lot of it being mined, 12.5 new Bitcoins every 10 minutes. And in a couple of hours, it will change to the gold because there will be fewer Bitcoins mined every 10 minutes, 6.25. Let's move to the concepts, to the theoretical proposals. Um, That is a concept of hard euro that was proposed by German economist Ulrich von Suntem. And it is similar to Thomas Mayer's inflation indexed securities. It is a proposed solution for the southern part of the Eurozone, which suffers from the fact that they only have one currency, the euro, and their monetary goals uh, should be different. Like traditionally, Italy and Greece and other countries used to devalue their currency in order to support their exporters. But now, within Eurozone, they cannot do that anymore because there is a central monetary policy. So, Van Suntem suggests that there should be 2 euros, and that would allow some countries to devalue or to get rid of the indebtedness by means of inflation, uh, while not hurting the savers at the same time. So Thomas Miles says, well, yeah, we can do that by inflation index securities. So you have a bond, and the value of the bond is adjusted for inflation, so that the savers would buy these bonds, and inflation would not harm them. But Santum says, well, yeah, this is a good idea, but the hard euro is better because it is more liquid. It is money, so it's more liquid than securities. So hard euro is one of the proposed solutions for European debt problems. It is a parallel currency for the whole Eurozone or only for certain countries. So it can work in both modes. It is only an accounting unit. It has no coins. There are no hard euro coins. There are no banknotes. There are just bank accounts denominated in hard euro. And it also denominates the contract. So if you have a long run contract, the prices are set in the hard euro. So hard euro serves as a store of value and an accounting unit, while the soft euro, which is the normal euro that we have now, or what the Eurozone has now, is a medium of exchange. Hard euro is resistant to inflation that might occur due to normal euro issue, the soft euro emission issue. The exchange rate between hard and soft euro is discovered in the market and set by the central bank while issuing more soft euro. So that means that the central bank sets the threshold price. The actual price is to be found in the market, but the central bank, by doing this, sets the threshold price. And the inflation is measured by Eurostat. So at the time when there is a new issue, it is set by the central bank what the exchange rate is, and the future exchange rate is this one, adjusted for inflation that is measured by the Eurostat. The substance of hard euro is consensual, and the monetary authority is the national central bank. In the Eurozone, countries still have their national central banks. So even though there is the European Central Bank in Germany, there is also the Bundesbank, which is in Germany only for Germany. So there is the national central bank. The national central banks are a little bit more than branches of the European Central Bank. They perform the activities that the central bank decides that they should perform, but also they have some privileges. Creating their own national currency in the cash form is impossible. It is prohibited by the Lisboa Treaty. That's the treaty of the functioning of the European Union. It's something like the European Constitution. And it says countries cannot issue their national currency in the cash form, but they still can do it in the digital form. So if Greece wanted to get back to their currency, the drachma, and still keep the euro, they can, as long as they do not print the cash form of the drachma. So a national central bank could create hard euro. Carrier would be contracts and bank accounts. Monetary unit is the hard euro, and the transmission system is through the soft euro or through accounting. So when you send or when you want to pay in hard euro, you need to transfer it to the soft euro first, which would happen automatically, but the receiver, in most of the cases, would get the soft euro because that is the medium of exchange. So the transmission system is through the soft euro. Two important institutions are the European Central Bank that states or determines the basic exchange rate, and the Eurostat, which is the statistical agency of the European Union that measures inflation. That would be the official inflation rate used for adjusting the exchange rate in the spot time. Collateral is the soft euro, and creation is for exchange for euro reserves, like soft euro reserves or euro-denominated securities. So that is how you get the hard euro. You have the soft euros or some other euro-denominated asset, and you exchange it with your bank for the hard euro that will be written to your account. Termination is exchange for the soft euro. This way, the hard euro disappears. Does it make sense? Do you want to ask any question about this?
Not exactly about this. The question that is there for a long time. What do you think? It would be better for Czech Republic to get to get the euro and get rid of a Czech crown, or to have the Czech crown?
Mm-hmm. For a long time, I used to be indifferent because the policies of the Czech central bank were exactly the same like the policies of the European Central Bank, and the Czech Republic fulfilled all the Maastricht convergency criteria. So there was no difference between having crowns and euro, and there were only the transaction costs connected with it, which I'm suffering from now. As I told you, when I want to send money to Kraken, I need to exchange to euro first, which is quite costly. Um, uh, but then there was the potential for the independent monetary policy, and I'm rather skeptical to fiat currencies and to the way how they work, because they cause the over-indebtedness. So it's good to have an alternative. Like now, when different countries treat the COVID emergency in various ways, it's a good thing, because we don't know what the good way is, what the right way of solving this pandemic is. So it's good when there is not just one policy, but different countries can try different things. Czechia tries different things than, I don't know, Sweden or Britain or China. And then the time shows what is right. So even the potential of having your independent policy is fine to have. And later, Czech National Bank uh, made this step. They used the power to have an independent monetary policy, and they devalued Czech crown artificially in order to support the exporters. And I think that this act was rather successful in terms of achieving some convergency. Um, the wages in the Czech Republic increased in real terms, and they got closer to the wages in Germany, for instance. So I think it had a positive effect. I'm not super happy about this, about the regulation, and about the central banks or governments interfering in the economy. But objectively speaking, or technically speaking, I think that it was a successful move, or successful policy intervention. So this is pretty much what I can say about accepting the euro or not. Yeah. The advantages of having your own currency is the potential to have an independent monetary policy, bigger flexibility, and also people sometimes have feelings or attachments to their national currency. Yeah, sure. Is that an answer to your question, Dana?
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, thank you for the question. Oliver asks, I have a question about silver. I've read that silver is more consumed in the industry than gold, and then not recycled. So there is always a little bit of it disappearing from the supply, and the price should rise. Is that true? From my point of view, if the price of silver goes up, more would simply be recycled. This is a very interesting question. Silver is used in the industry, so is gold. Silver maybe more. Gold is used in dental care, or it's a semiconductor. It is also used in cell phones, I think, in surgery. Silver might have more use cases. Um, Whether the price will go up, it's not only the question of supply, but also demand. Let's start with the supply. If, and only if, it would be consumed in the industry in bigger amounts than the amounts that are being mined, then the supply would decrease. But even if this is not the case, and the supply of silver is increasing as long as the demand for silver is decreasing more, then the price of silver should go up. And it doesn't really matter what the demand means, whether it is demand for the industrial usage of silver or whether it is speculation, doesn't really matter. From my point of view, if the price of silver goes up, more would simply be recycled. Uh, I'm surprised that it is not recycled. Probably the recycling is more expensive than the price of silver. So if it goes up, yes. If the price is higher than the cost, of course it would be recycled. That is a fair point. Yes. Also, there is a natural tendency for gold and silver to appreciate, and it is because fiat currencies are designed to be inflationary. And we can very well observe the inflation in the prices of precious metals. We might not observe the inflation so much in the real economy, and that is because the processes in the real economy are improving. So it's cheaper to produce pretty much anything. So that is one trend of monetary inflation that should cause the price inflation. But against this trend, there goes this optimization and improvement of the productivity, which pushes the costs down. So that's why the price inflation that we observe in the economy is not as drastic as the monetary inflation, which means printing of new money. But in terms of prices of silver and gold, we can observe it better. And the same applies to the price of Bitcoin. It should be very sentient to the price of or to the monetary inflation of dollars and fiat currencies. That's my bet. That's why I'm very bullish about cryptocurrencies, or at least the quality cryptocurrencies, because the money printing or the QE just must show that the dollar is weaker and not as trustworthy as a currency with a tighter monetary policy. Thank you for the question. Positive money, or Vollgeld in German, is another proposal by Thomas Meyer. Thomas Meyer used to be the chief economic officer of Deutsche Bank. So he was like the boss of Deutsche Bank, the biggest German bank and the most indebted bank in the world, I think. And later he started criticizing the way banks work and the way how money is created. So he came up with an idea of Vollgeld, which is positive money, money that is purely an asset and it does not represent a liability of any other party. So it would be money without debt. And the goal of his work was to reduce indebtedness. He wrote at least 2 books on that topic. Of course, after he was fired from Deutsche Bank, and he started his own institute studying the topics of indebtedness and money creation. According to his proposal, banks' money would become a private claim. That is what they should be, because that's what they genuinely are. They are an IOU behind the bank. According to Maya, money is a public good. So bankers should be elected because the financial power is in modern world just as important as legislation or execution or the courts. So money would come into the real economy in different channels, this topic was studied in Iceland. Iceland is a country that suffered huge financial distress, huge trouble after the financial crisis, or during the financial crisis 10 years ago. And the prime minister of Iceland had a commission that should have proposed an alternative to the fiat financial system, and they got inspired by this Folgeld initiative. And according to their proposal, the money would go, the positive money, the Folgeld, would get into the economy in three ways. It would be issued by the central bank, and the central bank would either distribute it evenly and directly to the population in the form of a certain universal basic income, which would mean that normal people would have accounts at the central bank too. Or it would be given to the government, and then it would get into the economy through the government spending. And of course, this would need to be controlled by the parliament. Or the central bank could lend money to the commercial banks, and then the commercial banks would lend it further to their clients, which is what people usually believe central banks do. They don't, but how people imagine it, that there is some kind of real money, and the commercial banks are just intermediaries providing these to the people who need them or can afford to take the credit. Problem is that the bankers would lose part of their power, so they would not really like it. So there might be a compromise solution that I was thinking about, and the compromise solution would be that the banks would normally create money as they do now. The money would enter the economy via credit, but it would not terminate. The money would not be destroyed when being repaid to the bank. So in the moment when the money would be destroyed, cancelled, it would become positive money. Only the liability would be destroyed, and the asset part of the money would prevail, survive, and that would be distributed to the government or to the average citizen, whatever. And it is only logical, because the fact that the debtor was able to repay the debt proves that there was space for money in the economy in the first place. So the destruction of money when the debt is repaid is senseless. It doesn't make sense. It's illogical. Let's compare euro with positive money, with the new euro. The substance is the same. It's consensual. There is no collateral, but the monetary authority instead of banking sector would be the European Central Bank. Carrier are banknotes and coins again, but special accounts instead of the bank account. So there would be normal bank accounts with the private bank's money, something like the Hayek suggests, but the real money would be on special accounts that are distinguishable from the traditional bank accounts. Monetary unit is the same, transmission system is the same, no changes here. Institutions is the ECB and the central banks. Creation is no longer credit, it is arbitrary now. It is arbitrary. The central bank does that, and then the parliament agrees. Or there can be, I don't know, a referendum, whatever. But it's arbitrary. It's not through credit, and there is no termination needed. If you understand German and if you are interested in this concept, I have the books and I can lend it to you. If you are in Czechia. We have 7 more minutes, so I will skip these parallel currency proposals that were suggested as a possible solution for the Greek indebtedness crisis. Um, in a nutshell, there were IOUs, like representative money, types of representative money that we already learned about. So it's like a note issued by the government, not the central bank or commercial banks, and it's like a future tax certificate or some kind of airdrop of money to the people as an IOU of the government. Let's talk about the positional arms race problem again. Some of the functions of money are contradictory. The statutory function and medium of exchange function are in this controversy. They go against each other. So the statutory function is like the virtual penis. The more money you have, the bigger boy you are, the more respected you are. That's why people hoard money, even if there is no economic reason for them to do it. And then the money is withdrawn from the economy and it cannot serve as a medium of exchange. But because it was issued as credit, still the indebtedness is laid upon the economy. So there's the problem side of money being created, but there's not the good side. It's just hoarded to show off somebody's ego. So the proposal, how it can be solved, is either to measure the amount of money historically. So, like once you reach a record of how much money you had, it would be somehow recorded, and you can use it as a show off. And then at the same time, you can claim that you are a philanthropist. You got rid of the money, you gave it to the people, whatever. The best way how to do it would be proof of burn. Some experimental cryptocurrencies were created on the basis of proof of burn, which means that the new cryptocurrency, and in this case it would represent the status, is sent to an address which doesn't have an owner. There is no private key attached to that address. So if you send this cryptocurrency to the address, it disappears forever. So such a currency would be or should be a perfect money for performing the statutory function. People would thus not save more than they need, and money would circulate faster, giving the workers and firms a better chance to earn some money. Even today, some millionaires, billionaires, they get rid of their money by sponsoring charity, like Bill Gates. So the statutory money would use the same motivation and make these donations more compatible and more reliable. Some economists believe that reputation is a currency of the future. I believe that too. Reputation or your face, that is something that you will carry with you forever, even if you will live hundreds of years, which I believe we will, because will have these nanobots repairing our bodies. I strongly believe that. So I think that the worst thing you can do now is to lose your face, because that is the only thing that is really scarce and that is very difficult to get back, even if you will live in 100 or 200 years. Plus, we have the internet, and with the pseudonymity of the internet, a reputation is a valuable asset already. A cryptocurrency that is trying to approach this is ION, AION. That is a cryptocurrency that would help people to retrieve their reputation from services like Uber or Airbnb and to transfer it to different systems. ION. So it is a currency of the internet, reputation, reliable clients can get discounts, they can be even paid for using some services because it is a good promo. It is important to be a key influencer today. So with the world being or becoming more and more a decentralized global village, the ancient meaning of trust reappears again. So when you send the money to an address and you get the score for the reputation, it can be, where can it go? Either it goes to the state budget, to the government, or it can be redistributed to everybody, again, as a form of universal basic income, or it can go to the miners. It is a cryptocurrency. So that would motivate people to mine it, and the currency would be more decentralized and stable, repeatable. Then these are just some ideas. We have 1 minute for questions. I would start with my questions as a recap. What role does convertible peso play in a Cuban monetary system?
It's for price discrimination.
Yes, it is for price discrimination, exactly. What role did Bonnie play in the Czechoslovakian monetary system? It was money that you could use for buying things that cannot be bought elsewhere. So different types of goods were served by different currencies. That's one of the role. And the other one is that it was a tool for the government how to get to foreign currencies that they needed for international trade. What role could soft euro play in the European monetary system?
Medium of exchange.
Way for
It would be the medium of exchange, and it could help to some countries to deleverage from their indebtedness. We will skip that because we didn't have time to speak about water money. So last question, what role will Bitcoin play in the global economy if fiat prevails? So imagine a system that fiat will stay with us and Bitcoin as well. So they will be parallel currencies. They will exist next to each other. What role will Bitcoin play in the global economy?
it could be same as gold. I mean, as the way of to save the value of the money we have now, we would buy Bitcoin.
Yeah, good idea. It can be a store of value. It can even be a reserve currency. So what we did today was this, the systemic analysis. Systemic analysis is part of your paper. And in this part of your paper, you should assess the monetary area where this particular currency is being used. And you should say what role is it designed to perform? What are the other currencies operating in the same monetary area? How do they divide labor among themselves? And are there any competing currencies doing the same thing? So that's it. That's the systemic analysis. If you want to learn more about cryptocurrencies, or if you want to participate in an interesting research, or if you even maybe want to make some money, you can contact me, for instance, via email, because probably we will need to hire a couple of interns in my company, or at the university as research workers for some interesting application projects for cryptocurrency. So if you are interested in that, let me know. I thank you for visiting this course. Wish you good luck with the exams. And this is like the last place or space for you now to ask questions.
When should we send you back our activity points?
To my Waves address, which you can find, for instance, in this presentation that I'm about to upload to Dropbox, or it is the same address that you have been receiving your activity points from, also in the introduction PowerPoint, that is the address. It starts with 3BM something. Anything else?
Sir, for doing research with you or with the university, do you accept English students as well as Czech, or only Czech?
English students are also welcome, yes.
All right, perfect. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, if there are no other questions, I'm looking forward to meet you at the exam, and enjoy the last week of the semester. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.